Hi, this is Umaraj and welcome to Excel 2019 Fundamentals. In this tutorial, we are learning how many ways we can do cell referencing in Excel functions or formulas so we get the right results. By cell referencing, we mean using the cell address or cell name in a function or formula. The default cell referencing in Excel is relative cell referencing, and here the cells move relative to the function, so the function works correctly at every new cell location or position. And we will see some examples using relative cell referencing. In the first example, we are calculating the percentage grade of each student in the list. We do that by dividing the grades by the total and multiply by 100. And for the first student, we will do that equal to grades divided by the total and multiply by 100. Enter. And now we will copy the formula to the next cell by dragging the autofill handle. And we will see that as the function moved one cell to the next cell, the cell values which make that function also moved to the next cells. And it always kept that logic that values from two cells to the left divided by value from one cell to the left and multiply by 100. And the cells move relative to the movement of the function, and this is called relative cell referencing. And this is the built-in default way of doing cell referencing in Excel. And now we can copy to the end of the data set, and we can see that it is working at every cell location for the formulas. In our next example, we are going to calculate the total sales of regions by quarters and by quarter for all the regions. So in the first example, we are going to calculate the total sales of the region North by adding all the quarterly sales for the region. Complete the function and enter, and we can see that it is adding all the values from K9 to N9 for the region North. Now if you move it to the next cell, again by dragging the autofill handle, and when you click on that function value, you can see that as the function moved one cell down, the cell values moved to K10 to all the way to N10 to reflect the value of the next region, that is Northeast. And again you can copy it to the end of the data set here. And at every cell location, the function works correctly because the cell values also moved along with the function. In the same way, we can calculate the total of all the regions for the first quarter by adding the values from K9 all the way to K13 and enter. And when you copy this horizontally to the next quarter total sales, and when you click on that, you can see that the values moved from K9 all the way to K13 to L9 to L13 to reflect the second quarterly total sales. And again we can complete this, and you can see that it's working at every total values. And in our last example, we are going to find the sales of total units sold of some products by country, and we are going to do that by multiplying the units by the unit price. That is, the logic is two cells to the left multiplied by one cell to the left, that is a unit price, and enter. And when you copy it to the next cell by dragging the autofill handle, and when you look at it, you can see that the values moved again to the next cell to reflect the new cell position for the next formula. So it moved from D19 and E19 to D20 and E20. So this is pretty much how this relative cell referencing is working, and here also we can see that at every new formula cell, the cell values which make that formula also reflecting the exact same logic. Now there are situations when you cannot use only relative cell referencing when copying a formula or function in Excel. So we will see that through an example. And this is the same example as we used in the relative cell reference, the student table with grades, the total grade, and we are going to find, as before, the percentage grade of each student here. The only difference here is we don't have a separate total column for the total grades. We have the total only in one cell because it's the same for all the students. So we will find the percentage grade like we did before using the relative cell reference. Here the grades divided by the total grade multiplied by 100 to find the percentage grade and enter. And now we are going to copy this to the next cell here, and we will see that instead of doing the calculation correctly, it generated a value error. We will look at this and see that when the function moved one cell down, the cell values which also make that function moved one cell down. The grades moved from C10 to C11, which is right, but the total, which was in D8, also moved to D9. And if you want this function to work correctly, we want this total value in D8 to remain constant or locked. We will say that it has to be absolute. So there are ways you can make the cell value absolute and not move when you move a function which is using that cell value. And we will see what is the syntax for that. When you click here, we are doing it using the absolute cell referencing. Here again, we are using C10, the grade value, divided by, instead of D8, we are using $D, $8, and then multiplied by 100. So the dollar sign in front of the column name and the dollar sign in front of the row number makes this cell value D8 an absolute cell value. And the keyboard shortcut for doing that is to select the cell value and press the F4 key. So we will see that soon. So here we are going to enter this value, and now if you copy it to the next cell, we can see that this is working correctly. When you click on that, the grades moved from C10 to C11, but the D8 value, which is a total grades value, that cell did not move and it remained constant or absolute. So the numerator is using the relative cell referencing to move when the function moves, but the total denominator value is using the absolute cell referencing when it moved that value to the next cell because it stayed absolute or locked or constant. Now you can copy it to the rest of the list, and you will see that it is working correctly at every cell. You can click at every cell and you can see that it is remaining constant at D8, and the grades value is moving relative to the function movement. In the next example, we are going to calculate the tax paid on the total sales value here for all these regions. So here the tax rate is in this cell M8, and we are going to calculate the tax on all these values here. So we will do the first one in this cell equal to the total sales multiplied by the tax rate, enter. And when you want to copy to the next cell, you want to make sure that this value, the tax rate, remains absolute and only the cell value should move relatively. So for that we had to make the tax rate absolute. For doing that, we can just either you can manually put a $ in front of the column name and row number, or you can just use F4 key. Now when you enter and when you copy to the next cell, you can see that it's working correctly because the the total sales value moved one cell down, but the sales tax rate remained constant in M8. And you can just complete it to the rest of the column. There are situations you may want to do a mixed cell reference. We do a mixed cell reference when you want to copy a formula in both directions. That means in horizontally as well as vertically. And in this small example, we are going to find the final tax on this total sales, and you have two tax rates here. One is a 10% tax and the 5% tax, and we want to find the total sales on the first tax in this column, and we want to find the total sales on this tax in this column, and then you want to add it. So we need to write just one formula in this cell, and you should be able to copy it horizontally to the next column, and also you need to copy it vertically to the rest of the column. So we will see how we will do that. So our first cell, we are going to find the tax on the total value on this cell multiplied. In here it is 10% tax, so multiplied with 10% tax and enter. And when you look at it, it is E14 multiplied F13, and as you copy it down, you want that 14 to become 15, then 16, etc. So you have to leave the 14 relative. And when you want to copy it to the next column, you don't want that E to become F, because you are again finding the tax on the same values here, which is in the E column. So here we have to lock E and leave 14 as relative. And when you look at that F13 value, you want to, when you move it down, you want to remain it constant everywhere. You don't want it to move anywhere. It should be F13 in every cell. So you need to lock that 13 here. So it will be locked when you move vertical, but you want to move that F to become G when you come to this column, because in this column you are calculating this tax. So when you do that, when you enter and when you copy it to one cell here, we will see how it works. When you click on that, it is E15 and F13. So this value remained constant, the tax rate remained constant, but the total sales moved one cell down to reflect the correct calculation here. So you can just complete that calculation. When you click on here, it's again F13, that is a 10% calculation, 10% tax, and here the total sales corresponds to the right cell here. Now we will copy it to the horizontal to this column and see how it's working. When you click here, it is E14, that is what you want. You want the total sales from this cell, and G13, that is the tax here. So the F became G, but that 13 is locked, so it will not move. Now we can copy it to one cell down and see whether it's working correctly. Here when you it's E15, that is the next total sales, but the G13 is remaining constant on the tax rate. So in both columns it's working correctly, so you can complete that rest of the data set. And here you can find that the total sales is F14 plus G14, which is right, and both needs to be relative, so you don't have to do anything there. You can just copy it to the rest of the column. So in this tutorial you just learned a very important and very useful concept in Excel, which is cell referencing. And if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe, and we will see soon with another Excel fundamentals topic. In the meanwhile, please play with Excel and practice, and thank you for watching.